Bart Allen, grandson of the legendary Flash Barry Allen and descendant of Iabart Thawn, sounds too good to be true, right? If you haven't read a page about him in DC Comics, this is where you'll discover him, and trust me, you'll be hooked. Here's how it starts. Unlike the Superman pages, where everything revolves around deep dialogue and philosophical questions about the nature of the Darkseid, this story opens right before the shocking events of DC KO. At this point, everyone is slowly realizing what's about to happen. Unlike Superman, where words dominate, this story explodes with a climactic moment. The Darkseid strikes a blow that knocks both West and Impulse out in an instant. Now, back to the beginning. It all starts with Bart and Iris, Wally West's daughter. You can call her whatever you want, but right now, she's getting ready for an exciting trip. I'm going to take you on a little journey to get to know Bart Allen better. I won't keep you waiting, but trust me, it's worth it. You'll get a better look at him, especially when Ray turns to him and asks, "Hey, is this really going to be okay?" Bart just shrugs, gives a mischievous smile, and says, "I'm not sure if we should do this, but it sounds like fun, right?" And that's enough, right? Because right now, all I can think about is Jai, running around Keystone City, enjoying every moment. Jai, of course, is Wally West's other son. Then Iris speaks up, her eyes suspicious. "Shouldn't you ask permission before borrowing something?" Bart curled his lips and replied, "Look, here's the thing. One, this isn't a car. Cars are slow, cars are boring. This is JL 657 Starjet, a super fast train. So fast we'll be back before we leave." Iris frowned and asked, "Do you know how to drive this thing?" Bart laughed. "I don't even know how to drive a car, let alone a spaceship." But then he continued, his voice full of confidence. "What's the worst? It's just hurtling through interstellar space on a train. What's the big deal?" He paused, then added, "Second, Wally's locked me in the watchtower for so long that I think I deserve some fresh air." Iris laughed and shook her head. "I mean, there's no air to breathe in space." Bart smirked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I mean, you know what I mean. The point is, we've talked enough, right? Let's try it, shall we? Fire up the Speed Force and see what it can do. Like a car racing movie. All explosive and intense." But then he shrugged, his voice dropping. "And you know, some people don't want us to have that much fun. And guess what? They shut off the engine. Completely shut it off. The one who did it was none other than Superman. Who would have thought? If anyone could understand the kid's desire to run wild, it would be Superman. But no, he played the role of the troublemaker, standing there and saying sternly, 'Hey, this isn't the time for this kind of impulsiveness. We're having a Justice League meeting.'" Then the scene cut to Max Mercury and Bart. Now, let's pause for a moment to review some interesting things. Bart Allen officially appeared in the Flash volume, 2 issues 92 and 93. He had actually been briefly seen before in a cameo, but it was in these 2 issues that you really got to see his origin and backstory. Bart Allen is not like Wally West, Barry Allen, Max Mercury, or Jay Garrick, who all gained super speed through external factors that paved the way for their speed powers. Bart, on the other hand, was born with the ability to break through speed, like a fire that is always burning. The special thing? He can't stop it. In the Flash Volume 2? No. 92. Iris approached Wally, her voice trembling, her eyes heavy with worry. "My nephew is about to die." Because of his unstoppable super speed, Bart's body was aging at a terrifying rate. In just 1 week, old age would take his life. At this time, his body was far ahead of his mind, racing nonstop, so they decided to connect him to a virtual reality simulation. The goal was to create a space where he felt comfortable, not realizing that his body was gradually fading away due to age, while hoping that his mind could catch up with the speed of his body. But all efforts failed. In the end, Bart Allen was brought back to the 21st century, carrying with him a fate that had never been decided. The first time he met Wally, Bart did not hesitate, rushing straight into the attack. Not only targeting Wally, he also suddenly launched a strike at West, Wally's close ally. It's important to understand that by the time Mark Waid wrote these pages, he had taken Wally to the next level, making him the ultimate speedster. Not to take away from Barry's legacy, but to portray Wally as someone who understands the power of speed better than anyone else. Wally is perhaps the fastest superhero who has ever lived, thanks to his ability to focus and harness his speed so perfectly. Bart's presence not only complements that, but also gives Wally a younger version of Flash, like a spiritual apprentice of his own. Call it that or not, but the core idea is the same. Wally tries to take Bart under his wing, to pull him into his wing. But the problem is Bart grew up in a virtual reality simulation, where the concept of danger doesn't seem to exist. So he acts impulsively, and that's where the nickname Impulse comes from. To solve the problem, Wally assigned Bart to Max Mercury, the first person in DC history to harness the power of speed. Max, you could say, is the oldest of the speedsters, or Windrunners from the old days, if you want to use that name. Under Max's guidance, Bart was helped by Wally to restructure his power, preventing his body from being exhausted by speed. From there, he learned to live like a normal child, understand the value of patience, and restrain his impulsive actions. But in the end, between him and me, only one person could move on. If you were a teenager with the speed of the Flash, you will understand how strong that impulsive feeling is. That is what made fans love Bart Allen, a young man with a passionate heart, especially when remembering his time in the Young Justice team. After finishing the acceleration training, Max Mercury pulled Bart aside and said, "You could have run halfway to Andromeda before you even thought about whether it was a good idea." Bart just laughed and replied, "Hey, it's okay, I just need to stretch my legs a little, Max." And honestly, I would have done the same. That was the moment Max passed on a profound lesson to Bart. Bart, the greatest speed a human can go is when they are completely still. Bart laughed and replied, "I don't know if that's wise or just smart. What do you think?" Max just smiled. "Just do it your way and you'll understand." Bart scratched his head again and sighed. "To be honest, I don't understand what you're talking about." And throughout the conversation, Max patiently explained, but Bart didn't seem to care. To him, speed was everything, and stillness was something he had never experienced. Bart is caught up in a whirlwind of thoughts as the Watchtower meeting takes place, where Doomsday, the Time Thief, and everyone else are updated. The funny thing is, as soon as his eyes meet Doomsday, a flash of determination flashes through him. No, absolutely not. Not here. Not my place. He immediately dashes away, lightning fast. But Wally, with lightning reflexes, grabs him, his voice stern. "Stop, kid. Look, this is serious. This is a matter of life and death. Why don't you just focus for once?" That's the opening moment of both the Justice League Omega one-shot special and the first issue of DCKO, where everyone gets to hear what's going on. The point is, this isn't like a Superman story where dialogue dominates and action is sporadic. No, not at all. It was an explosive moment, as brilliant as the Darkseid taking down Impulse in a flash. It's no exaggeration to call it a memorable scene. It went like this. At that moment, Doomsday stood there, his voice booming, declaring to all, "This is the history of our existence. Every branch of time, every possibility has been explored, and it all leads to this end with the Darkseid." In that moment, Wally heard every word spoken. He said softly, "When the Timekeeper and the creator of the world discussed what was to come, what was, and what still could be, we listened in silence. The heart of the apocalypse had been implanted by darkness deep within the center of the earth millions of years ago. There, a soul grew with Omega energy, completely subservient to the Dark Master, the Omega King who could rewrite the past, present, and future, ruling over the entire universe. Our final effort will no longer be a conventional war, but a tournament to the death. My closest friends and allies will have to fight to the end, willing to shed blood, even give their lives. All just to decide who will become the Omega King before the darkness consumes us all. I sense the fear rising in them, or perhaps it is the trembling of my own soul. But mixed with that fear is the fire of determination in my cousin and daughter who stand strong, refusing to bow to fate, regardless of the challenges that await. When the whole truth is revealed, only a small group of people with super speed will be chosen. Not all of them are present, but among them are Jay Garrick, Max Mercury, Wally West, and Bart, who all ask, in the light and in the fear, where do we start? A small but crucial detail, seemingly insignificant at first, becomes important later. Wally, in a moment of retrospection, confides with a distant look in his eyes. For some reason, I remember second grade. There was a bully named Travis Piper. My dad, Rudy, was bad enough, but that kid, I was sure he was going to kill me one day. That cold fear still lingers, haunting every fiber of my being. This seemingly small detail will soon reveal its importance in the story. Back at the Speedsters, Wally, Jay, and Max emerge as the most sane pillars in the midst of chaos. The other two, young and impulsive, are no match for the maturity of this trio. Wally, in a straightforward tone, looks at everyone and says, "Honestly, this whole plan sounds insane and desperately reckless." But Jay Garrick, his eyes steady, interjected, "I mean, it could work. If we fight the Darkseid way, find a champion, we really have a chance." Wally, standing there, silently considered. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face, as if unsure how to feel about the spark of hope that had been lit. He said, "I was ready to fight, but since Wildcat fell, I've been left with only rage." I replied, "We beat Darkseid until there was nothing left." In fact, Ted Grant, who is known as Wildcat, was murdered in JSA number 6. It was Lady Eve in the Injustice Society who did it. It was a shocking moment, as she coldly stabbed him through the chest with her sword. The scene was both brutal and haunting, and from that moment on, Jay Garrick could no longer keep his composure. Even Wally chimed in, his voice low. Even if we have to rush into a crazy battle, is that really what we're aiming for? Max Mercury, who was considered the wisest master among the speeders, calmly said, "Perhaps we should listen to the advice of the time trappers. They say that we can slow down the pace of time, restart the flow of the past, and give us a new chance." Time Trapper and World Forger proposed the idea of slowing down time so the universe could rebuild. It was a terrifying and fascinating concept. If the timeline were reset, none of us would remember what had happened. It was a metaphor for a new beginning, a total rebirth. However, most superheroes were against it. They didn't want to erase the past, didn't want to start over. It was like a message from DC saying, "We know you're tired of reboots." But then Wally turned to Max, his eyes flashing with doubt. "But here's the thing, Max. We've traveled through time so much. There have been versions of heroes from all over history. Is there anything real in that flow?" Hop Harrion. Did you know this guy used to sleep on the floor of Ted Kord's closet? It's hard to believe that a detail about Hop Harrion was mentioned. For those who don't know, Hop is a classic character, appearing in the first American comic pages around 1939 or somewhere. This guy's existed for a long time, like a faint shadow in the flow of time. More recently, Hop reappeared in Brave and the Bold. From issue 1 to issue 3, Superman received a distress signal from Hop, and when he appeared, he discovered that Hop seemed to have not aged at all, as if trapped in a silent time stream. But it all turned out to be a setup by a villain with a name that was hard to pronounce. In the end, Hop saved Superman, but then he fell into the deep sea, and his memory was once again forgotten. Is DC reviving this character? Hop, despite his classic appearance, is still a name that few people remember. But what's interesting is when Wally, with a worried look in his eyes, says, "Besides, the timeline is burning. Time Trapper showed it to me. I saw it all. The Darkseid is tearing it apart, brutal and unforgiving, remaking everything to his liking." At that point, the kids chimed in. It's not necessarily a bad thing for kids to jump into this story, is it? Like learning from Marvel, if the Fantastic Four's Future Foundation has taught us anything, it's that kids can think outside the box. They come up with solutions that adults never could, with their out-of-the-box thinking. If time slows down, we'll go even faster. I say that with all the confidence reserved for people like us. Bart immediately nodded in agreement, his voice filled with enthusiasm. That's right. When Darkseid was trapped in the dense energy layer like honey, we could have completely defeated him in the past. No problem. If Time Trapper really slowed down the flow of time, then when we return to the moment Darkseid first appeared in Justice League Watchtower, he would have moved so slowly that he was almost motionless. That moment would be the only chance for the Flash family to finish him off, ending the chain of chaos that had lasted for so long. But Wally looked at me, his eyes solemn. No, it's not that simple. He pressed on. Do you really think it's that easy? Do you think just going back in time will be enough to defeat Darkseid? This world doesn't work that simply. Even Ira interjected, quietly reminding that he had always opposed such life and death battles. Bart shrugged, half joking. Hey, I grew up in the 31st century, where virtual reality taught me how to survive without disintegrating into a mass of liquid energy. So I know what's hard and what's not. Wally frowned slightly, his eyes almost reproachful. Bart just laughed and continued. I mean, I used to ignore the difficulty settings in every combat simulation. If this world is a game, it's time to upgrade to the real thing. Wally, his face tense, sighed. I went all out, man. I ignored all the protection. It might have knocked me down, but I'm still standing. Iris, standing next to him, smirked. You mean if the Darkseid slowed down, it would be a piece of cake? When he moves at normal speed, he'd crush us for sure. But a restrained Darkseid? Ha! That's no challenge for the Flash family. After a heated argument, Wally in a steely voice interrupted. Look, Bart, this isn't a game. It's not a virtual reality simulation. This requires serious planning, real strategy, not the first impulsive idea that pops into your head. But as soon as Wally turned away, Bart was gone, as quick as a blink of an eye. He dashed off, merging into the time stream, muttering, Okay, we'll go back and take down the Darkseid. Such an impulsive move. Wally later recounted, his voice filled with frustration. In a nanosecond, Bart crashed through the reinforced wall of the Watchtower, straight into open space. That could have killed him on the spot. Luckily, Bart slipped into the time stream before he was swallowed by the cold space or suffocated. Wally, shaking his head in dismay, continued. And I hesitated for a moment because I lost focus. Result? I was thrown out of the timeline. So all I could think was, go get after Bart now, before he does something stupid, or worse, stupider than what he already did. What was remarkable was that Max Mercury was completely clueless about Bart. I had never even heard of him. Wally, standing there, eyes wide open, exclaimed, Oh my god! He muttered, voice full of worry. So it's obvious. He messed up the timeline. Who knows how much he's been erased? Maybe even vanished or nothing. Without hesitation, Wally rushed back into the timeline. Eyes sharp, absolute focus. The interesting thing here is, DCKO is a giant crossover event where the main DC universe and the Absolute Universe collide. DC uses this opportunity to reveal characters never before seen. Bart, therefore, gets a brief, dramatic explanation of breaking the limits of virtual reality simulations and such. Wally is not left out either. He speaks in a low voice, as if facing the storm. The timeline around me is collapsing, infected by Omega energy. The Speed Force screams, as if it is in pain, under attack. I see glimpses of the past, the image of me admiring Flash, the moment I became Flash, and my whole life seems to revolve around becoming someone else. But what other choice do I have? He pauses, his eyes lost. I'm going too fast, completely out of control. I can't catch up with Bart. I'm about to lose him, lose everything. It's a flash of an introduction, wrapped up in one page, like a flash of Wally West. But then, Wally finally finds Bart. He shouts, "There he is!" When he emerged, he found Bart standing in the watchtower, just as the Darkseid emerged, putting his plan into action. The two of them sat motionless, silently observing the scene where time had almost completely stopped. Everything around them was frozen in an endless moment. Wally spoke softly, his voice low. This is the moment right before he was destroyed. The one who used his own destruction to create the Absolute Universe. Bart looked around, his eyes reflecting the ripples of time that were distorting like the surface of a lake in a wind. Everything moved so slowly that it was imperceptible. The microseconds that passed felt like hours. Wally whispered, "No one can see us. Right now, we are surpassing the speed of light. We can defeat him. We can save everyone, and then everything will be back to normal." He turned to Bart, giving a short smile. This is our chance. Bart didn't hesitate. He charged forward, through the frozen light of time straight at Darkseid. He believed this was the moment to fix everything, but he was wrong. Darkseid stood there, his voice echoing like the sound of the universe. "I am everything. I am the beginning and the end. You really think you can go back in time and defeat me? That's ridiculous." Bart had no idea what awaited him. Meanwhile, to Wally, the scene before him was terrifying. Darkseid seemed to move at a normal pace, and they, though faster than everything, were slower than him. He knew they were coming, he waited, he was faster. And then, in a deep, thunderous voice, Darkseid said, "Even your speed, soon, will be mine." Wally saw it all. He choked, his voice filled with pain. I've seen friends fall before my eyes, but never family destroyed like this. He charged at the Darkseid with all his might. The Darkseid immediately prevailed, taking control of the situation. He only said coldly, "Let me show you something. Let you understand your place in the big picture. Let me remind you why I am the embodiment of chaos, and why only a fool would dare to think of destroying me." Then the Darkseid continued, "Let me show you who I am, what it feels like when I touch your past and future." And then he began to reverse their own history, manipulating every moment of their lives. They both suddenly saw distorted memories appear. Bart explained that he was back in the 31st century and reconnected to his personal virtual reality system. Wally felt himself back in second grade. As Travis Piper beat him to a pulp, they both realized something was wrong. In those few moments, Wally thought to himself that he didn't remember Travis ever throwing himself through a playground frame. Bart remembered hacking the difficulty in every combat simulation, but he hadn't expected the pain to be so real. Looking into Travis's eyes, Wally suddenly understood the nature of his opponent. Bart also came to his senses in that moment, realizing who he was fighting. The Darkseid made them witness it all to show off his power. He declared, "I can destroy you anytime and anywhere I want. You see, I am inevitable." And then it all became clear. It was the end of simple hope. Bart stood there, like Gene Hackman in The Quick and the Dead, his eyes blazing with defiance. "If I survive the apocalypse, it's because I let it, man!" It was spectacular, it was epic. That's why I love DCKO. But hey, we haven't even reached the main tournament. We haven't even entered the real battle. This is just the warm-up, the prelude to the big confrontation ahead. Then the story returned to Bart's experience in the virtual reality simulation. He muttered, his voice low and determined, "I remember the code to turn off the virtual incubation system. Turning it off would make me disappear, but it seems that's fate." He turned to Wally, his eyes determined. "We have to get out of here. Staying here means death." Wally, sweat beading on his forehead, replied, "I'm running, but I don't know where I'm going." His voice was heavy, as if caught in a whirlwind. Deeper into the past, into the time stream, even though it was burning. Omega energy devoured everything. Speed Power screamed, Heartbreaking pain, but maybe there was still a chance to stop the Darkseid. Maybe somewhere in the past. Then, Bart suddenly appeared in Russia, the 30th of June 1908, exactly 7:17 a.m. He looked around, his eyes bewildered. Where is Wally? His voice echoed, as if calling Wally's name in the vast space. But Wally was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, Max Mercury passed by, fast as the wind. Max shouted, "Get out of the way, kid!" Bart, stunned, shouted, "Max, what's going on? I'm trying to find Wally!" Bart stood in the unfamiliar space, his eyes bewildered, scanning his surroundings. "Where is Wally? I don't even know where I am." Max, his face tense, replied, "That Omega Blast is the most powerful energy I have ever witnessed. He holds the truth, and he will give it to me. My destiny awaits." Max's voice dropped, as if facing his fate. "Emissaries, prophets from the future, show me pure speed. I have followed you in that great army for a long time, sworn absolute loyalty." When Bart caught up, Max only bowed his head silently, his eyes heavy. It was the moment that revealed the presence of the absolute legion of superheroes. Their conquest of the multiverse was still spreading, not only in the present. Superboy Prime had just been attacked by them, and now they were polluting history, distorting the past. Saturn Girl appeared, her voice cold. "Yes, what they call impulse. Our master was disappointed by your sudden retreat. But now, you are ready for a massacre." Max, with a stern look on his face, simply replied, "Respect his word, his judgment." That's it, folks. We're going to wrap this video up. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. Remember to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.